Okay, let's talk about WordPress.com Studio, which just kind of got released in the last few weeks. It's been a really big deal. I think it's a really cool piece of technology. It has some really cool stuff under the hood that hopefully we'll talk about. But I've also seen a lot of kind of like broader misconceptions about it. So I thought it would be a fun thing to just talk about what are some of the big misconceptions people have about WordPress.com Studio and what can we learn about WordPress and about the community just by kind of examining these conceptions and turning them on their head. So my top three big things that I keep seeing. So, first, let's start with what is WordPress Studio, just real quick. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's basically a local development tool that lets you spin up WordPress websites on your local machine. And it comes from WordPress.com. It's a pretty like kind of cool way to do it because under the hood, it uses this tool called WordPress Playground. If you've never used WordPress Playground, it's literally a website. You go to a website and it's WordPress running inside of your browser, running PHP, mostly running SQLite as the database. And so WordPress Playground is like maybe one of the coolest places of where innovation is happening in WordPress. So the developers that worked on WordPress Playground created this tool called WP Now that was basically like command line spin up a little WordPress on your local machine. And WordPress.com has sort of taken that, it's a lot of the same people, they've taken that and they've bundled it into like an actual graphical user interface where you can load up these playground versions of WordPress website using this tool and they run locally on your computer. And then it has this kind of nice integration where you can click a button and it'll deploy it to WordPress.com servers and you can share it with other people. So it's a really cool tool, a really cool use of technologies. But like I said, there's been a ton of kind of weird misconceptions just from maybe people in the community and stuff. So let's go through the list. Number one, I keep seeing a lot that this is an official WordPress local development tool. And that's the first misconception. This is not an official tool from WordPress. This is actually not even from WordPress itself. This is a tool that comes from WordPress.com. WordPress.com is not the same as WordPress.org. And WordPress.org is an open source piece of software. And it's, includes things like the plugin directory and the theme directory and the code itself and all the collaboration that goes on and the support forums and all this different stuff. That's WordPress.org. That's that open source community that anybody can join. WordPress.com is a hosting company that you go and you pay and you get a WordPress site, just like WP Engine or GoDaddy or something. Obviously, there's some differences. The fact that they can use WordPress in their name and the fact that they are part of Automatic, which is one of the largest contributors towards the WordPress project, and also that they're owned by one of the original founders of WordPress. So they are a little bit different and stuff, but this is a tool that comes from the private company, WordPress.com, and it's not really an official tool for WordPress.org because it does have that integration layer with your WordPress.com account. It's not a bad thing. That enables you to do cool stuff. In fact, the other very popular WordPress development tool that we'll talk about, which is LocalWP, is the same thing. It comes from a hosting company, WP Engine. It has a deep integration with that account that gives you some extra features. So that's not a positive or negative. That's just the way that the tool is built. If you wanted a official WordPress local development environment tool, I do recommend one called WordPress/env, but this is a developer-y kind of tool because it uses Docker. So if you have Docker running, you type in one command in your computer and it spins up a WordPress environment inside of Docker for you. It's very command line. There's no app you download. There's no graphic user interface. So that's kind of that. But that is the, if you had to say, I guess, official WordPress local development environment, this is probably the closest you'll get that comes from the actual core project itself. Okay, misconception number two is that this is I keep seeing people say, like, finally, a local development tool for WordPress, as if there hadn't already been a million. There's been a million local development tools for WordPress. We had back in the day, you could kind of like hobble your own with like XAMPP and MAMP and all those sort of like old servers. Local WP has been around for a long time. Almost every hosting company has their own local development environment. Kinsta has one, WordPress VIP has one, Pantheon has one. Like all these places have local development environments. So the idea that this is some sort of like first thing or new thing is not really the case. I would say the one difference is that most of those examples I gave are command line tools where you run it in your terminal and that sort of thing. So if you're saying, well, this is WordPress, but it's a graphic app that I can download, then I think local is really the other main competitor that I would say is the closest. But local's been around a long time. And that actually reminded me of one of my old favorites that doesn't exist anymore, but Desktop Server, which was a great graphic user interface for WordPress as well. And it's not even really the first app for WordPress. There are WordPress mobile apps that are on WordPress.org. There is, this isn't even linked to anything, but there is a desktop one that I remember downloading at one point in time, some sort of desktop WordPress app that was very WordPress.com integrated though. And I think you need to have Jetpack. I think you need to have support for XML RPC, which a lot of hosting companies don't even let you turn on anymore. So the options are there. There was a desktop app. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, the point being, WordPress development apps have existed for a long time. This is definitely not the first one. And I think the third misconception that I keep seeing is that this is going to be a local WP killer, that this is I think Chris Queer said like shot across the bow local and stuff like that. And I think from the outside, when you kind of look at the two different projects, you're like, okay, a list of sites on one side, a bunch of settings here. It's very similar. But the reality is that under the hood, they're extremely different products for really extremely different use cases. So Studio by WordPress, this one comes from that WordPress Playground WebAssembly in the browser version of WordPress, which is not really the same WordPress that you're going to run on a real production server for clients on like your hosting company or something. So it's a tiny bit different under the hood. The availability of PHP modules, the fact that it uses SQLite, these are slight differences. There are some things that aren't going to work on Studio or in Playground that would actually work on a hosting company or with local. So there are some real technical differences under the hood, and it depends on the type of work you're doing, whether you could actually use Studio or not. So that's the first big thing. If you go to the Git repo for it, there is like already some issues listed with things like how it handles media files and embeds and stuff like that, because it is running WordPress all inside of a browser. So if you're doing heavier duty stuff, you might end up dealing with bugs that you think are because of you, but they're just because of the way Playground works. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. The second thing is LocalWP does bundle a lot of other features in that are not as part of Studio, and I don't know if they will be. Number one, with Local, it brings WP CLI, which is like a really power user tool. They kind of give you that automatically. It opens up a terminal, all that stuff. With Studio, you have to have it installed on your machine already, which is maybe a little bit of a barrier to entry. Maybe it's a nice thing. Depends. LocalWP also includes tools like MailPit, where when emails get sent out from your WordPress site, it like fake sends them and actually puts them in a fake inbox. So if you're testing like email routing or receipts or whatever, and you want to test all that stuff out, those sort of like advanced things, it has a tool to help you deal with that. It has a tool to open the database inside like Table Plus or whatever database tool you use and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely like sort of power user tools that LocalWP has that are not in Studio. Another big one is, and we use this all the time, even if you're not on WP Engine, if you have a zip folder with your WordPress website and database, you literally drag it into local and it spins it up and runs it and stuff. As far as I've seen for Studio, there's no import, export, really anything other than what's like core in WordPress or that you could do with WP CLI. So taking a production site from any server and getting it into your local environment, there's not really a workflow that they built for that yet. I'm not saying they couldn't, just saying that there's not one yet. And so that's kind of another big thing. With local WP, you can like pull a live website down, work on it, push it back up. With WordPress.com Studio, I think you can just like show demos to other people of a site, but you can't really like pull a real site and work on it and push it back up. That being said, WordPress.com has been doing some crazy developer things. Their Git integration is pretty cool looking and very unique and very different from other hosting companies. As far as hosting goes, they have good hosting. It's powerful and fast and all that good stuff. So there's definitely potential, and you can see kind of where they're going with it. But as of right now, at least for the kind of work I do, it's not going to replace my workflow or something I'm going to use yet. I think that if you're somebody who is building, maybe you're just building themes, like just themes, not really for any particular client, but you're just building a new theme for WordPress or a new block for WordPress or something that's a little bit more, it's not for one specific site, but it's just kind of like a general thing that you might want to share. You might want to build a theme and share it. I think that's sort of like a really good use case for it. I could see the WordPress.com themes team, where these people are cranking out themes constantly of these nice designs. I could see them wanting to use it. It would be really good for that. combine it with the create block theme tool where you just build a whole design, click a button, and it makes a theme for you. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that. I just don't think developers are going to be putting it into like a high-end development workflow. I think if you want to just like get into WordPress really fast and mess around and stuff, this is definitely a great way to go. Just like WordPress Playground is a really great way to go. And I'm not going to lie, I use Playground literally every day. So those are my three big misconceptions. WordPress Studio, it's not the first one here. It's not an official WordPress.com tool, and it's really not a local WP killer, at least anytime soon. But those three things aside, I don't want to get the impression that I am not excited about this. I think that it's a really good tool. I think that it's something that is probably going to have a lot of potential. When hosting companies release free tools to the WordPress ecosystem, it could really go one of either ways. Every hosting company, this is not about any single company, every company has things that they've done a really great job of supporting and keeping going. And then they have that graveyard of WordPress tools that they release to the community, a big to do, lots of fanfare, and a year later, nobody's responding to any of the support requests or issues, and it's collecting dust. I don't know which way it's going to go with this one. I think that there's so much potential right now with Playground and the technology underneath it, and the fact that the teams are so intertwined that I think there's going to be a lot of movement with it. And I think obviously WordPress.com has been doing a lot of developer focused features. So I'll be interested to see where it goes from there. And in the meantime, I'll keep using WordPress ENV. I'll keep using local and all the other local development tools that you have to spin up depending on who you're hosting with. And maybe one day we will get that really true official WordPress local development environment. But in the meantime, all these other tools are looking really good. Did I miss anything? Do you disagree? Any other questions about WordPress Studio or LocalWP? Let me know in the comments below.